So Donald Trump went on an absolutely unhinged rant this morning at Twitter, on Twitter. He said the following just a couple hours ago. Republicans feel that social media platforms silence conservative voices. We will strongly regulate or close them down before we can ever allow this to happen. We saw what they attempted to do and failed in 2016. We can't let a more sophisticated version of that happen again. Just like we can't let large-scale mail-in ballots take root in our country. It would be a free-for-all on cheating, forgery, and the theft of ballots. Whoever cheated the most would win. Likewise, social media. Clean up your act now. And that was Donald Trump basically responding to the fact that Twitter finally started calling his lying. Donald Trump, on so many issues, but specifically on mail-in ballots, has been lying for nearly 2 months now, because during this crisis, more and more people, more and more states, more and more officials are suggesting or demanding that mail-in ballots be more widely available because of a public safety need, to give people multiple ways of participating so that they don't have to put themselves or their loved ones or their neighbors at risk unnecessarily. Many states already use mail-in ballots. Donald Trump himself used a mail-in ballot to vote in the Florida Republican primary just a few weeks ago. Mail-in ballots are a normal, healthy part of American democracy. But the thing is, anything that makes it easier to vote makes it harder for Republicans to win. And Donald Trump knows this. Ben Shapiro has basically said that before, that if everyone who wanted to vote could vote, Republicans would never win. That's their game. And the mask is being ripped off because they want to stop, by any means necessary, mail-in ballots being available to every American who wants a mail-in ballot. So Trump is basically saying mail-in voting is fraud. And that's a lie. Whether by mail or in person, voter fraud in the United States is infinitesimal. Voter fraud across most of the Western democracies, whether politicians on the fringe right will say so or not, basically does not exist. And if there is voter fraud or voter manipulation in the United States, frankly, it comes from people like Donald Trump and many of his Republican allies that pass laws and regulations to make it harder to vote for those populations, poorer people, younger people, racialized people, that won't likely vote for them. That's where the actual fraud and distortions come from, not from individual Americans, cheating their mail-in ballot. It's an absurd claim. And so Donald Trump is basically saying, if Twitter's going to, say that my tweets are unsubstantiated, or that I'm lying, or that I'm misleading people, that's censorship. That's rigging the rules against me. And as a response, I'm going to close Twitter down. First of all, Trump likely doesn't have that authority. And second of all, it's pretty rich for the supposed party of free speech, the supposed party that rejects the liberal safe space, to basically say social media isn't playing by my rules. I'm going to literally shut down one of the world's biggest platforms. It's awfully rich and at least a little bit hypocritical. But beyond that, we have to be very clear. Donald Trump's campaign likely depends more on Twitter than Joe Biden's campaign. Joe Biden's on Twitter, but really, Joe Biden's interns are on Twitter. Some 22-year-old is running Joe Biden's Twitter account. Biden himself, I don't know if Biden has ever tweeted, individually. Whereas Donald Trump is very clearly on Twitter himself. It is a key part of his political expression. And for better or for worse, likely for worst, his victory in 2016 was based on his involvement on social media. People saw him as authentic. They saw him as, down to earth. They saw him as getting directly involved in these conversations in a way Hillary Clinton wasn't. And that likely helped him win and gain that initial support that helped him, carry through the primaries, even though he was an outsider. All of that due to social media, at least in large part. Donald Trump cannot win without social media, because social media is essential in spreading, frankly, false narratives that he requires to win. And if social media platforms finally start doing their jobs and calling fake news, then, Donald Trump can whine about it all he wants. But the fact of the matter is, they have every right to do that. And frankly, they have a responsibility to do that. They're not deleting Donald Trump's tweets. They're not taking them down. They're not preventing Donald Trump even from spreading misinformation. All they're doing is saying Donald Trump tweeted something out earlier today about mail-in ballots. And what he tweeted out goes against what all sorts of experts and what the data that we have shows. That's why it is an unsubstantiated claim, or it is a lie, or it is meant to mislead you as a voter, a member of the public. Finally, we're seeing some accountability levied against Donald Trump for his half-decade of lies as a presidential candidate and now as president. Donald Trump can whine all he wants, but I don't think he has the guts or the ability or the desire to actually shut down Twitter. Mail-in ballots are going to be happening. They're going to be happening in states all across the country. Donald Trump and the Republicans can whine about it every day of the week. They can cry till the cows come home. But in reality, it's becoming clearly exposed. The Republicans can only win when regular Americans don't have the ability to vote, or they choose not to vote, or a combination of the two. High turnout is devastating news for Donald Trump.